Welcome to this episode of the podcast, The Four Speeches. In this episode, with the title, Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word, we'll look at the apology. And why is it that it's so hard to say, I'm sorry? Well, if you find it hard to say, I'm sorry, when you're supposed to say, I'm sorry, or well, people expect you to apologize and say sorry, internet will always come to your rescue. So a quick search on the internet, you can find apology advice for, I'll just mention a few for you. Here you are. Letter of apology simply for a mistake. That's one. Apologize when you don't mean it. That's another one. Apology for stealing poem. That's one of my favorites. So if you've stolen a poem, there's an apology for that. And also apology for something you don't remember. It's also, so there's a list of like thousands of apologies. You could go on. Apology letter for dog bite, for not attending funeral, for sharing on social media, for stealing girlfriend, didn't visit sick friend, for misgendering, for political argument, and for lost item, for drunk text, or to get X back. So what does these apology, standardized text tell us? What sort of need does it serve? That we need to apologize. So corporate leaders do it all the time, it seems. Yeah.
Well, I think the life simply shows that you need at certain points to say you're sorry.
You're sorry.
And as part of a larger community, that community needs to say sometimes we are sorry.
So it's sort of the need to restore something when something's out of balance in some sense. There's a breach here, or there's. Is that a way to look at it?
Yes, because if you are really agreeing on that something has been done that should not have been done, or the way that it was done was not appropriate,
yeah.
Then you need to make a move so the life can go on in a certain sense.
Mm-hmm. So, but still the apology then, it's not saying I'm retreating, I'm giving up. It's also trying to restore my position because it's been damaged by what I've done or the accusations that's been held towards me. Is that right?
Yes, and you could also hold an apology for something that is perceived to be an evil act, and you could say that, well, it wasn't the best thing to do, but given the situation, the circumstances, it was the necessary thing to do.
Mm.
And we have apologies that put isolated evil acts into context, and they appear, well, more understandable in a sense.
So just to get the sort of formal rhetoric right, an apology is really a forensic speech. It's sort of a speech in self-defense.
Yes.
So that's,
and it is directed towards the past.
Yeah. So it's about speaking about what has happened in the past, the accusations that's been put towards you, and
yes.
and how you relate to them now.
Yes.
And how you value them, and then you sort of you make the audience or the public into a jury.
Yes. Because the purpose or the goal of the apology is to appear in some sense more justified than before you had the apology.
And for that purpose, you cannot not just justify yourself. You cannot declare yourself. You need a verdict.
Yes, because you are not the judge.
Exactly, yeah.
You are the accused.
Yeah. And I think there's a long list of standard apologies for different matters reveals maybe the need, or at least the interest in an instrumental, how can I fix this sort of thing? I need an apology for get myself off the hook for this. But what would be the temptations or the difficulties for a corporate leader who searches online and finds apology for misgendering or apology for stealing bad poem or whatever? What's the pitfalls? What are the pitfalls?
Yeah, well, the problem of just
this instrumental approach, yeah.
Yes, just picking a proper way to tackle these questions, or one pitfall is that it might not seem
credible.
Or authentic.
Exactly. So people would say, "You're not real. It's not. We don't believe you," because that's what you are. You want to be perceived as someone who's credible, and in that sense, persuade the audience that I'm apologizing, and my apology is authentic. But what is it that makes an apology authentic, or make people think that the apology is authentic? I mean, we've heard numerous stories about famous people, both from the sports world, the political leaders, who had to repeat their apologies repeatedly. I mean, Tiger Woods had to go on and on about his his affairs, to put it that way.
Yes. Well, the one of the classical examples of apologies is, of course, Socrates' apology facing death in the tribunal of Athens.
Exactly.
And he is not denying that he has broken the rules,
the
law. He's admitting that I might have done, or he goes quite far to actually agree with with those accusing him.
Mm-hmm.
But what he appeals to is a higher standard, so to speak. So he claims to have, he might have broken the actual law of Athens, but the principles that he follows are of
the higher purpose.
Of a much higher purpose.
Okay. So, but it's harder to do that if you've cheated your wife, which is in a culture where that's problematic. Then to tell the story of this served a higher purpose is not as easy. So, I mean, let's leave Tiger Woods aside, but the former president Bill Clinton, no longer the last American president to be impeached, but his impeachment was about how he not appeared credible in how he dealt with the Monica Lewinsky affair. So
yes, because then you face a more difficult position or a more problematic point of departure concerning your own apology speech than Socrates did, because he really believed that he had actually behaved according to his own rules, and he claimed that he had been acting truthfully and rightfully according to his own standards. That's at least Plato's account of it. But Bill Clinton agrees with the accusers that he has done something wrong. The question is, what is wrong in the wrongdoing?
And also, what he acknowledged later is that because he also had to repeat his. The original apology was from August 17, 1998, and in some sense, you'd say he'd use his family there as character witnesses in some sense, or try to say the ones who are going to put it right would be with his family and with God. But still, he reflects on this later and says that I didn't appear contrite enough, or my contrition wasn't acknowledged. I didn't acknowledge the importance of appearing as a penitent, someone who's So it's the question of contrition here.
Yes, and you touch on a very, very difficult thing, namely the appearance of being contrite and the real contrition itself. A Machiavellian approach would be appear as contrite as is necessary.
So sort of calibrate your contrition.
But the
which seems speculative and instrumental to sort of, for us who lives in a culture of authenticity, we would think that I have to pour my heart out.
Yes.
Yeah.
The clever thing, what Machiavelli says, is do what it takes to preserve your authority. Mm. The dangerous thing is that what's at stake is your character.
Exactly.
And
your ethos.
People might smell a rat.
Yeah.
In your clever calibration of your own apology speech.
Yeah.
So a more Aristotelian way of putting it would be, okay, admit what you think was wrong in your wrongdoing, but do not throw the whole case away by appearing totally contrite on every. Just try to give an account, taking part, or try to describe what happened as you see it from your point of view, and appear as contriteful or as sorry as your own character allows it.
Yeah. There's an advice, I think, to remember the 3 A's of an apology. First, to admit the wrongdoing, acknowledge the impact of that wrongdoing, and then performatively apologize. So admit, acknowledge, apologize. But mentioning that, it sounds sort of instrumental as well. But I think that the problem for Clinton and other leaders with formal power is that if you admit to wrongdoing, if you acknowledge it and you apologize, part of the verdict would be, why doesn't this person leave his office?
Yes.
So how should you sort of keep, or maybe it's not possible, but if you and I mean, one thing is an apology or saying that I did this is a terrible offense, and I have no other choice than to give up my office. I betrayed or whatever. So then it's so then the apology, in some sense, might serve the purpose to restore the brand or the company, but it in some sense you're letting go of your formal powers, at least.
Yes, and the problem also of admitting too much,
exactly,
is also that it's not only the
it has a legal side as well, doesn't it? If
yes,
someone wants to sue you,
exactly, and so it's there is some truth in a good calibration of how contrite you are supposed to appear. However, I would say that it's better to be clear about the consequences.
So from now on, I will do like this, and there will be no more something, no more lying, no more whatever. So.
Yes, or if you say, well, given what we have discovered in our organization culture, we will now have to fix it. You know, the diesel scandal of the Volkswagen company is a thing that you cannot just appear. You know, sorry, we cheated with the.
You have to restore trust by showing the consequences. This is now what we do. So we have.
Yes, and it's not enough to show a contrite face.
No.
You have to actually make
what is called reparations in some sense.
Yes. And you have to really to appear credible, to say that now we have let in, for example, what the politicians do when they feel the threat of their own authority. They say, well, we will let in a neutral committee or a
we will let ourselves be investigated. So,
yes.
So to restore trust. So, but it's this once again. with an audience that expects authenticity to value an apology as authentic, if you're letting your lawyers read what you're going to say, if people smell this sort of, this guy is lawyered up and is trying to give his apology in a very judicial language, you might lose this feeling of contrition.
Exactly.
So it has to be, once again, you have to tell a story that's personal. It has to be a you. That's I'm saying sorry to you. It has to be
One of the perhaps most effective tools in appearing contrite in public is to actually announce things that will hurt you.
Yeah.
For example, I abstain from receiving salary for half a year because of this. Or that if you say I have now actually I have decided to step down.
Yeah, or it was known that when Mel Gibson gave his apology after giving what you could call hurtful comments about the Jewish community, he first apologized to the Jewish community, and then he let the public know that he's went into rehab for his alcohol problems. So once again, signaling this sort of, I realized that I messed up in the public, and I need to draw back to a place of restoration.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is also, I think, a matter of how you talk about it. When you, one of the first A's you mentioned, namely the admit.
Yes.
Well, it has become a habit now among Norwegian politicians to say, well, I admit that I have said something that might have been experienced or interpreted as a wrongdoing.
Yes.
So I apologize for what has been interpreted as so and so. But then you are not actually discussing the what you are accused of in the first place.
You're dodging the bullet, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that the audience will hear that.
Yeah, they will.
And they will despise this attempt to not addressing your own problem, because you have in the apology, and that is a very old trick. You have to address the most important question.
Yeah, start. Yeah, if you leave an elephant in the room, it will fill the whole room.
Yes,
so
it will follow you in some sense.
Yeah, let's not expand that metaphor. But so the apology then is because the people expect, or the audience expect, a person, the authentic. That's the tricky thing. And even if we read the apology of Bill Clinton, it's I all the way. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate, but I told the grand jury today, I know that it's almost every sentence is starting with I.
Yes. That might be an American phenomenon.
That might be, yeah. Maybe so, yeah.
But I think you are right.
Yeah.
It is difficult for a large organization to have a contrite face.
Yeah.
So I think that also, in a certain sense, showing that you are really, if you want to ask for forgiveness for wrongdoings, that's one part of the apology. Then a contrite face is what is needed. If you cannot appear as someone who has been affected by the wrongdoings of your company, you're not able to stand in the storm, I think.
But don't you think this, I mean, you spoke earlier about how we despise when people say that they're sorry or contrite in a way that we don't trust. Maybe that even roots back to our childhood when people just say sorry, or so we need to. And this, of course, this is contextual and depends on different cultures and family cultures and whatever. But in some sense, we need to understand that this is when people say "I'm sorry," you can put trust in this. We don't really know what makes you put trust in it, but you have to. It's an open verdict, so to say.
Yes. The most interesting thing about what you mentioned now, to my mind, is that there's an economy of the sorry word.
Yeah.
So you could say it so often, or you could utilize it so much that it's drained of effect.
Yeah.
But I think trained ears, those in the intended public that really are listening carefully to what you are saying, if you have a real intention of showing that you are indeed sorry, and you one way of intensifying that aspect is to show that you have read reports about the damage that you or your company has created.
Well, you mentioned that it's hard for an organization to have a contrite face. So in the last part of our podcast, we'll look at what I would label a surrogate apology. That is when a leader apologizes on behalf of an organization or a corporation, or even behalf of a nation. I mean, we've had prime ministers and presidents apologizing for how a particular nation has either treated the rights of indigenous people or have done grievous bad acts in the future or in the past, for which the current prime minister or president couldn't really, at least not legally, be responsible. So that sort of apology is tricky. So you're apologizing on behalf of a bigger entity. It could also be on behalf of a firm which is accused of something that didn't happen on your watch, to put it that way. Yeah. But still, now you're the person in charge. And if you do not apologize, if you say nothing, the brand or the image of that organization, nation, will continue to be hurt, to put it that way. What do you think?
Perhaps the best example of what you're saying now is the how long the Nazi regime's atrocities they follow into the third generations after the Nazi regime in Germany. So the new generation takes upon themselves the guilt of their grand and grandparents. And this is perhaps an attempt to keep the memory of past wrongdoings alive, but it is also to signify that we try now to make room for another society that is beyond or better than the one that we come from. We sort of yes. So I think it's about to open the history for change.
But let's say you're the leader of a corporate firm, and it is revealed that 50 years ago your firm was involved in not just illegal activities, but activities that, let's say, hurt children or damage the nature, or in some sense really was the firm was it's really so far from the ethos or the legacy of the organization you could think of. What do you do? So how do you I mean, we could go back to the 3 A's in some sense, but I think there's a fourth point here after the admit, acknowledge, apologize, is that you have to offer some sort of reparations. in the end. You have to ask the question of, we now realize that this was wrong, whether it's slavery or whatever it is. And now we want to do things right by offering some sort of compensation. But the problem is, if you offer compensation, then why only $1 million? Or why only... So how do you measure the damages of the past? It's really tricky.
It is. And I think to a certain degree, or to a certain extent, you cannot.
No.
So it's.
So you have to say that as well. This is not to compensate in any way what happened, but we want to offer it for something else. Let's say a more constructive purpose of legal advice, because what it boils down to, I think, is that it might threaten the very existence of your organization. If the wrongdoings that are revealed in the past are of a nature that could lead to a list of, let's say, moral lawsuits, it could mean the end of your company.
Yes, and it raises also the difficult question of whether if a company has an old name, whether it carries responsibilities for wrongdoings that have been done hundreds of years ago.
I mean, you have all these oil companies who now change the name into energy companies. So who knows what the past will look like in that sense of what sort of apologies.
Yes, but I think for as far as the apology speech is concerned, one should be careful to know its limits, but also its potential of either constructing a different picture of the leader that you are if you represent the company, or the ability of stabilizing the past as something that you've taken into account. You have read the reports, you have admitted what you've done, and you try to do things better in the future. So alone to state it is also
so once again, it's acknowledging by letting stories or putting on stage stories that actually damages or retells a totally different story of the brand or the firm you represent, and then in that sense it's risky. You open it up to a verdict.
Yes.
Yeah. But in the longer run, it might strengthen your brand because you were associated with authenticity, being honest, being truthful,
and also that you can also appear magnanimous.
Yeah.
Because instead of hiding, let's see
I'm coming out in the open.
Yes. Well, about the past. I mean, if you for example have benefited very well from let's say activities from the Second World War.
Yes.
Some companies have. So if you are open about the investigation into that activity, you might appear as
in some sense credible,
yes, and also open to critical questions, and the desire of appearing human, to virtuous. It might also have a problem to it, namely that you conceal the problematic past. So I have great respect for organizations and firms that allow also the darker sides of its existence to be portrayed.
Appear on stage in some sense. I don't know if you remember the terrible accident in Bhopal in India in the 80s.
I do.
Yeah. And Union Carbide, which was the firm people found to be responsible then. There was a very tricky accident a few years ago when a group sent out an apology for that incident, and they linked it to the group who's now bought Union Carbide, but it turned out to be a staged apology by a comedy group who wanted to force this company who hasn't really apologized to sort of, they put it out that this is what your apology should look like, although you claim that it's not your responsibility. But we're a political comedy group. We're brave enough. I think they were Yes Men or something was the name. I don't remember quite. But that's interesting. Sort of, they put up a sort of this is how you should the contrite face of this organization should look like.
Yes.
And they were in the hiding, so to say. So, yes. And this was a way of trying to get them out.
And for the apology itself, let's say this company that has been trying to sort of hide themselves from the disastrous effect of the Bhopal tragedy, they have to, for their considerations, they have to be very careful how to enter the apology speech or how to construct an apology, because it ultimately it is linked to the truth.
It is.
So if you have to stand up and lie to the public, one day or later
it will be revealed.
It will be revealed, or it can be revealed.
I know. I mean, this is a big theme, but maybe that was sort of the foundational idea behind the Truth and Reconciliation Committee in South Africa, that the truth is really what could bring. I mean, it's a debated approach, of course, but I think it was born with this idea that by telling the truth,
yes, reconciliation,
we will say, might happen.
Yes, and the most important thing is that it was not just a reconciliation committee; it was a truth committee,
yeah.
And people were encouraged to display what they experienced.
Exactly.
And that is, of course, a difficult thing, because it might be a problematic, but that is how it is. It stems from an old theory from the Middle Ages, and that is that a witness is evident to the people when it has some features, some characteristics that actually only a witness can have. Okay. And that is the closeness to the event itself.
Yeah, I was there.
This is what I experienced.
So maybe sorry still seems to be the hardest word. We've tried to take some time to talk about the apology, the genre of speaking in self-defense. I think it's a speech where easygoing advices are less needed. It's a risky business, but sometimes a very needed business to admit, acknowledge, and apologize. But it can't. Yeah, it has to be calibrated. And yes, so see you until next time. I'm Bård Norheim,
and I'm Joar Haga.